The Amgen biotech experience is something I've been running at George Vanier for the past 2 years now. And it's been an amazing experience for myself and for my students. Ever since leaving post-secondary myself, I haven't had access to the kind of equipment to run something like this, and it has been through the partnership and through the generosity of U of T Mississauga and Amgen that I've been able to bring this experience to my students. I know for my students, it's been a glimpse into what life at post-secondary could be like in the field of biology. And for them, that's an amazing, amazing piece of information and experience that they need to help inform their decision as they transition from high school to post-secondary. This school year has brought a very challenging context with it, with the pandemic, and being able to do in-person labs right from the get-go has been a monumental challenge. From my confidence level of being able to run it safely in the classroom, to having enough space to do it, and frankly, the easy way out would have been not to do it. But after talking to Christina Hahn with U of T Mississauga, she was immediately very supportive and very helpful with coming up with a format that would work for our students. She prepared even more segmented materials for us to use so that we could safely deliver this across 2 different cohorts that would be attending on an alternating schedule. Really being able to bring this to the students in this year was only possible through the hard work of Christina and the team at U of T Mississauga. This didn't solve the problem though. We still had some students who couldn't make it to school. For various reasons, some students opted for just remote online and learning opportunities, and they weren't able to be there in the building to experience some of these things firsthand. So for those students, it was really beneficial to have LabXchange. And I had never thought about running LabXchange, and really in my mind, I never saw the point in doing it prior to this year. But now that I have done it, I can see how it's useful both in a pandemic setting and in a non-pandemic setting. And I'll talk a little bit more about why. So LabXchange has a really developed interface. Students are able to click and access and manipulate the same kind of equipment that the in-person students were using. And for students at home who can't experience using a pipette or spinning tubes in a centrifuge, this was an invaluable experience. They would never have understood what the flow of the lab would have been absent of the LabXchange simulation. So the LabXchange simulation really did get the students at home who couldn't be in person as close as to possible as being active participants in this biotech lab. I could see this being really useful in future years, and rather than it being the sole mode of delivery for students, hopefully when we're back in schools full time, this could actually be a really good review opportunity for students, or even a primer for students who are going to walk into the lab. One of the things I've noticed with working through this lab is students in this lab tend to have a real focus on their fine motor skills as opposed to the actual protocol. They've never worked with a pipette before, so working with a pipette for the first time really absorbs a lot of their attention. A lot of their conscious energy goes into that singular task of moving a small volume of liquid from one container to another. And so, when the lab is sort of racing by and you're moving through that protocol and you get from start to finish, sometimes with the in-person, they're almost at the end in a bit of a daze, like, what did I just do? What did I just accomplish? What is it that this protocol actually had me trying to achieve? And I think LabXchange now could be a fantastic wraparound to that experience to say, okay, so now we're going to go through this through an online simulation where students can repeat a step or look at the flow of the lab from a really low risk perspective. Sometimes in person, you notice students are really worried about messing up, right? They're afraid that they're not going to be able to transfer the liquids over. And I find that fear tends to override sort of the higher order thinking skills that you want to be in that space. And eventually they'll get there as they get more confidence. And they certainly do understand a lot more about the protocol and worry less about the technique by the latter stages of the lab. But I can see LabXchange as being a really great way to wrap around that experience in the classroom.